Kadeen, here is a question. Let me just get this on YouTube and I'll be right with you. Good. So here is a question. The complaint is that my son, the family says that their son, 22 years of age, is bringing a young lady into the house. They are Christians. The young man has not made a commitment as yet to the Lord. And he still lives at home. And he brings a young lady to his room. And sometimes the lady sleeps at the house. To the disgust of the parents. What should the parents want to know whether whether they should put him out of the house, or what should they do, whether that is Christian love to put him on his own, and what happens if they do that and he ends up on the street in the gangs and what have you and so on. You know the story. So I'm letting you three folk to go at it because you had a chance to ask questions. So take a shot.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Pastor Henry. Thanks for having me on. Well, to me, that's a straightforward response. And my response would be, my house, my rules. And so, therefore, tough love. The young man should know that this is the principle of this home. And if that's the lifestyle you want to live, then you have to do it elsewhere. To me, that's very straightforward. With all the, the problems that could come upon him, that'd be part of his choice, and that'd be the consequences of his choice. He's an adult. He wants to pursue adult behavior. Then by all means, do it, in your own space. But if you're here, then you cannot. Yes, you can go outside, and they won't have any control there, of course, and I don't think they'll try to. But you bringing this in the person's house, that's gross disrespect. So my house, my rules. Thank you.
Pastor Griffith. He's probably okay. Yes, he's still on his mic. Yes.
Hear me?
Yeah, I'm barely hearing you. Your volume is very low.
Yeah, should be better now.
Okay.
Right. I'm having little issues with my video, and I was in and out. I'm still in and out. The question was again? Good evening, everybody.
The young man is 22 years of age, and he has his girlfriend, and the parents found out that at times the girl is sleeping in his room. What should the parents do, bearing in mind they consider if they put him out, he's on the street, he can get involved in activities like crime and what have you and so on?
I'll probably go back to, I always quote the guy, Dr. Dobson, about love being tough. I believe that in a house, there's one king and there's one queen. And if you are an adult, you got to appreciate that you are actually now lodging at someone else. And you are compelled to some extent to follow the rules of that house. If you're having difficulty with that, you actually want to give cause to bring disrespect, then you should move. If the family is sufficiently dissatisfied with what is happening, then, as the doctors say, love must be tough. So there's one king and there's one queen.
Sister Kadeen, you want to chime in? We're giving all the panelists a chance this evening. We're going to move from that question and allow the audience to ask their question. And if somebody wants to, if somebody in the audience wants to add to the question, you feel free and do so also. But Sister Kadeen, you ready to chime in? I lost her. Don't tell me I did. Yeah, she's there. All right, so probably I see Pastor Francis just join us. Pastor Francis, good evening, welcome. Okay, she's having problems with her audio. Pastor Francis, the question is that the 22-year-old man is bringing somebody into the Christian parents' home. He himself is not a Christian, or the 22-year-old son, he's not a Christian as yet. And they found out that he is sneaking a young lady into his room. What should they do in such a situation?
The who refers to the home, the parent in the home.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so what should they do? The first line of thing is you talk to him. Talk to him, let him know that what he's doing is wrong and it's not accepted. The home must establish that fact that what you are doing is wrong. It's not accepted. You will have to change your behavior. And I will go further than, well, in fact, I don't know what was said before, so let me just give my part. If needs be, you need to talk to the young lady too and let her know, because I'm talking about things I had to do, let her know that her behavior is not what you like and you do not subscribe to that in your home. And I'm going to push it a bit further. If they still continue, I think the two families will have to come together. The girl's family with your family, and let them know that this is happening. It's happening in your house, under your watch. Therefore, you are the one, and I'm talking about a home where a young lady is sleeping, you are the one have to take the initiative. That's basically I will approach it. But they must be spoken to. Let him know. Because you see, sometimes, Pastor Henry and the audience, we know that what is being done is wrong, but save face. And then a lot of things got to be taken into consideration. Maybe the child's behavior, I'm talking about why it may be avoided. Maybe he may be a hostile son, and you want to be careful that he does not get violent. It's a whole big scenario that we need to look at and deal with it as it occurs according to your knowledge and what is taking place under your watch. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I see a message, a chat. Someone says that they asked that we introduce the panelists. We have all our panelists who have been on the program this evening, so that all of them who have been on the programs throughout 2022. So first of all, let me Pastor Chandler, he's the pastor of the Christian Union Church. Pastor Joseph Griffith, he's the pastor of the Christian Caribbean Evangelical Fellowship in Barbados. And Pastor John Francis, he is at People's United Fellowship in St. James, Trinidad. All right, Sister Kadeen Dorset is a counseling psychologist. She's having problems with her audio. When you are good, Sister Kadeen, let us know and we'll bring you into the conversation. All right, so anybody has a question that you would like to ask the panelists? Could be a follow-up question to this one. Okay. I'm not seeing anything in the chat as yet. So, in the first question that we have here is that the parents are supposed to maintain the authority for the home. I gather that from everybody. I think Pastor Francis left some room for negotiations. Am I right, Pastor Francis?
Yes, Pastor Henry, you're right. I believe there's supposed to be some rooms for negotiation.
Okay. And so one of them possibly can be intent for marriage?
Well, it all depends on the age of the two individuals, because sometimes
one is 22. The boy is 22.
And it all depends on would they be able to maintain each other. And so it got to be taken according to the status of the two persons, because sometimes what we do, we put a plaster and a sew and it runs and it undermines other, because we have a lot of marriages that have fallen apart because I think the two persons should not have been married at the time, and to save face and to shame, we push them down that road only to realize that in a year's time, it becomes hostile. So I will really want to deal with the case as in real life, because real life we may have to make different approaches than what we will say in theory, sitting as a panelist. As panel, yeah, those on the panel.
So I want to look at the flip side of that. I want to look at the flip side of the question, just the other side, because I don't think, I mean, to me, I would ask then, if you have a son, even though he hasn't made a decision to serve Christ, how does he arrive at that decision? What is the sort of relationship that exists between parent and son for him to arrive at that decision that it is all right to sneak somebody or to bring somebody into the house that is not his wife, you know, so to bring a girlfriend into his house? Could there have been some problem with the parents themselves? Could it have been something with the parents? Anybody, any of the panelists? Could it be some fault on the parents' fault, or some fault of the parents?
The issue could possibly be a lot more complex, because, like, for example, we do not know the age or the stage of the development of the child at which the parents became converted, and therefore there would a certain environment, a certain condition would have been created in the house, maybe where people visited, or maybe certain things were already happening, and then people got saved after that. So that is one of the factors that can make it a bit complex. Then we mentioned that the person is 22, but for that matter, he doesn't have to be 22. Let's imagine he was 30, right? Mm-hmm. And how easy is it for us to say to a 30-year-old son, I'm sorry, your girlfriend visiting cannot come at this house and go into the bedroom. You can't shut the door. Is it really that easy? You know what I mean? And are we always correct to say that something bad going on in the house? And I mean, is it really that simple? I ask a question.
You asked, so you're the one who answering tonight, so you can't ask the questions.
But I'm suggesting it's not really that easy in every situation. Mm-hmm. And what I think will be very strong, S-R-O-N-G, is what is the behavior, what is the respect that's going on in the house? Is the strange behavior and noises coming from the bedroom? Are people walking through the house naked? Are people using language that is inappropriate? I think these are the most obvious ones that will come in, especially when it comes to the adult child. And that will help us to decide, look, not here, out. Now, in the case of a minor now, I think we're more easy to make drastic decisions. I'm sorry, she is a minor, and I'm not gonna have her in the bedroom with you. I pause there.
Okay. The other pastors want to come in?
Can I come back in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You asked the question as it relates to the young lady slipping into the man's house, and you wanted to know, has something gone wrong in the home if the parents are Christians? It does not always have to be so. And what I think you said, what has caused it, because we live in a real world where people are being influenced by pressure, other people outside of the home. And this may have been a case where the family or the parents did not know that such a thing was happening. And my bone of contention is if they knew it was happening and nothing was said or done, then I would have said something must have gone wrong. But in the initial stage, probably they didn't do anything wrong. Just the guy had a mind of his own, being influenced by guys who must have told him, I do that in my home, so he could have done it too. Let me give an example of a real case I dealt with, and not too long ago. And I'm glad that Pastor Griffith, you said something about respect. Similar case, this young lady sleeping into this guy's house and sleep. And the first question I asked her when it was brought to my attention is, does this guy live with his parents? What you're doing when you slip into this guy's home, does he live with his parents? And then she told me, no, he's renting his own apartment. So that's a different scenario. But I would not always say that because it has happened in the home that the parents must have done something wrong. Mm-hmm. They may have brought him up in the way he should go, but he have chosen that route. Just before I came down, I heard something, and I think it was on the program with Sergeant Alexander, whatever the program is, it just slipped me. And they were talking about children have the power to make the choice. And sometimes, in spite of what we tell them, they choose. What they don't see that is the consequences of the choice that they make. So in that choice, there are consequences that are not obvious, and sometimes it tells and it leaves lasting effect upon our life. I want to borrow Brother Griffith's phrase, I rest my case. Is that you say it? Tell me.
I pause.
I pause.
Hi, good evening. I have two questions.
Yes.
My name is Christine St. Marie, and so my first question is directed at the psychologist. These days, we are seeing a trend whereby children are actually becoming very abusive to their parents. They blame their parents for everything that is going on in their life, although they have the choice, you know, as God gave us choice to choose between right and wrong, and even adult children whom you expect to know better, and they make bad choices, and when they face the consequences, they blame the parents. We also see a trend whereby some of them tend to get violent and abusive in all manner of the word, physical, verbal, and they also display a sense of entitlement, like just because we are their parents, they expect us to provide everything for them, and you know, we owe them something, even if they are adults. So I would just like to ask the psychologist, if you have a child like that and you are doing your best as a parent, and even if the relationship is not 100%, but you know to yourself you're doing your best, and you still continue to experience that sort of abuse and unappreciativeness and ungratefulness, and do you tell the child, okay, it's time for you to find your own place, because you are seeing that no matter what, the person is set in their ways, and they just don't want to make up their mind to change, because I believe in order for any change to happen, it starts with the mindset, and you're seeing no matter what you do, the mindset will not change, and there is no willingness to want to change. Do you tell that child, okay, it's time for you to move out, and just allow them to learn out there, give them some tough love if they need something, you provide it, but you know that it might be better if they are out on their own, so that they could probably experience the real world, so to speak, and just maybe by experiencing it, you know, they might learn the hard way, as they say. Or do you still keep that child under your koofers and try your best to still be there for the child and have the child in your space at the home? So that's one question. I know it's kind of convoluted, but I am hoping that it can still be answered. And also, the second one is for the pastors. You know, as teenagers, especially the male ones, when they start to get into puberty, they might have feelings and all of that. And, you know, so how do you talk to your male child with regards to masturbation? What are the things that you say to him without really messing up his psyche? Like, for example, we all know that it is biological to have those feelings, right? And we don't want to, yes, we want them to do the right thing according to the Bible, right? But what exactly do you say to them? Do you just outrightly say that, so say, okay, it is wrong, you cannot do that, you cannot explore your body, don't do this in my home, and I just need some advice in terms of, you know, what exactly, how do you go about talking to your teenage son, right, about that topic without making them feel like they have to feel restricted in exploring their bodies, and you know, not kind of taking things out of context and not sure how to go about even growing up in a free manner, you know? So those are my two questions, and I really hope I get some answers for them.
Okay, Sister Katie, you want to go first? Because you had the first question.
Good night, everyone. Still having some issues with my connectivity. I hope you guys are hearing me.
Yes.
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 We're hearing you quite clearly.
Okay. With respect to the question of the adult child, abusive, those behaviors that are really not conducive to a healthy parent-child relationship. There's a difference between empowerment and enabling. And we use this term, even in management, they use this phrase that you are taught how to manage. We don't manage people. People teach us how to manage them. And so this is a generation that they have options, they have information at their fingertips. We are living in a world of technology. We find that traditionally how we were raising children and families, there was a point in time where we would expose children to even choices. Sometimes we had no choices, but our children are growing up in a time and an age where they have knowledge, and with the knowledge, they have choice. And that's why we have this whole idea of a sense of entitlement, because children are aware of their rights. If you cannot give them this, there's some other way they could get it. And so we have that societal culture shift that has taken place in this century, right? But going back to my point about enablement and empowerment, you can empower your child without enabling them. And it's like the child that throws tantrums and screams, if every now and again you're given to the tantrum and the scream and you give them something, that is enabling the child, right? And as parents, we have to, even for the adult child, what you call that's negative reinforcement. Basically, you are reinforcing the behavior by responding, even if it's not all the time. Every now and again you're giving, because I can't deal with this. And so what could be happening in a scenario like that, especially if the child is already an adult? That enablement would have been happening. And we do it as parents because, of course, that's my child. I love the child regardless. But the behavior that you're getting as a result of it is not healthy. It's not conducive. And it's never too late to continue parenting. You know, learning happens. It's a lifelong process, both for adults and for children. The adult child is still very much that, an adult child. And so the enablement process is what has to happen now. So even as it was said, is it a good idea to put the child, it's time for you to move out, learn the hard way, tough love? That is possible. That is possible. That is a way of enabling, empowering. And that could happen at the same time as being supportive. That doesn't have to mean that I'm no longer supportive. And it's all about how you help that child to see where their individual power lies. So you wanna move into your own apartment, I'll give you the down payment, the deposit. I'm gonna help you with the light bill for the first 3 months. This is what you're gonna do. We will do it. And it's all about showing them, again, you have options in life. And this is where my boundaries are drawn as a parent. I'm not going to continue paying. I'm not going to continue doing everything. You are at the stage where you could do this now. I will help you. This is where I will help you. This is as far as I will help you. If this doesn't work out, you can move back in. The guest bedroom will be yours, but you will only be able to stay here till you get a better paying job, stuff like that. So in doing reparenting the adult child, you start establishing boundaries, but in a way that shows I am here for you, I love you, and I am still supporting you, if that makes any sense.
Thank you so much for that. And it does make a lot of sense. And this is exactly what you just said is exactly what was done. And I know for a fact that I don't have to feel guilty, because sometimes people tend to make you feel guilty by doing things like that, because they say, oh, you already know that the child is so and so and such and has that behavior. You're only sending them out into the world so that they could be gobbled up by the world. But sometimes this is what we as parents have to do in order for them to learn. And you are quite right in when you spoke about enabling and empowering. So it was just a confirmation that what was done was in fact the right thing to be done. So thank you for that.
Okay, pastors, the other question. What do you want to take a shot first?
The issue of masturbation and the child entering into poverty. Someone earlier said that invariably our children, even before they reach puberty, have developed some idea of sexuality. The older they get, the more exposed they get, and especially during the period of this specific area, their body now becomes alive. And more likely when the child, whether male or female, is masturbating, this is normally done secretly. Although you might be able to stand and see somebody playing with themselves gently, maybe like girls or some, if you're skilled enough, you might be able to pick it up. And so I'm suggesting that they don't normally do it for us to see. We normally pop and see it. And I do not know how easy it is to tell them or to get them to stop doing it, except that it is a signal to us that they are very much conscious of their sexuality. And what we would need to do is to try to engage them, if we can, in the subject by showing them, one, that if you start practicing satisfying yourself at this stage, you might find that as you go into marriage, you might have complication because I know how I can find my pleasure. But when I say that, the other person might be, but I am not now married, and I got years enough before I marry. I then might have to approach it from the perspective that, but let's talk. When you are doing this, what is going through your mind? Do you picture a pretty girl? Do you picture a handsome fella? Is it somebody in Pacific that you see, right? Now, if it's coming from a Christian's perspective, where the child is probably a Christian, we will probably say, but doesn't the Bible says, for example, that whosoever looketh upon a woman to lust after her? And with that kind of reasoning, you might be able to make inroads. But I will pause by saying that it is not easy, but the fact that we discover it tells us that we have an opportunity to engage the subject of sexuality if we have not done so before.
Can I come in, Pastor Henry?
Yeah, sure, right.
I don't want to. While the question was being asked, I wrote down some things, and I pray God that I could read my own handwriting for the benefit of the listening audience. But let me see if I could recall it from memory. And I'm going to center more about talking to the child, because that could be very, very embarrassing. Talk about to the child about masturbation. And I remember the very first program I sat on as it relates to Real Life was Pastor Brother Pierre was there, the guy from Grenada. That's his name, Pastor Henry?
Yes.
And we had a question being posed to that nature, and he said something that we should start speaking to our children, even at the time of conception. We start speaking to them in the womb, and when they are born, we start speaking to them, and as they grow, we continue speaking to them. As they grow, the level of the conversation should change. So we are always there when we speak to them, and we don't wait until, so when they are younger, we talk to them on the level, and as they get older, we talk to them at another level, and it goes like a step. So when that time comes to speak to them about masturbation and those kind of things, it will be very easy for us to do it. But what I have realized, both as parents and as pastors, we wait until the horse has bolted out of the stable to mend the fence. So the horse has gone galloping down the road, we run it down, trying to pull it by its tail to put it back in the fence. If we had developed that kind of relationship with our children via verbal and other ways, it would have become easier to deal with them when that problem arises. We should not be waiting until puberty steps in to talk to the children. I think at that time it might be just a little too late, because it will be kind of embarrassing, especially if the child is of a certain age. But if that kind of gradual conversation had continued, we would have been able to deal with it. But nevertheless, in spite of what I've said, I think that it must be dealt with, let them know the dangers of it. And I think Brother Pierre touched a point that I heard a gentleman say. He was a married man, and he said masturbation is sweeter than sex. And he must have been doing it for a very long time, because sometimes we look at those kind of things and we think it's only children and only teenagers, but sometimes it happens to big people who may have their wife. I know a lot of people who have left the bedroom and slip out in the living room or wherever they are to look at blue movies and different things. And some were caught, some was told about the dangers of doing it. So we need to address it. But if we start at the appropriate age, when that time comes to deal with that problem, it will be easier for us to handle it.
Can I say something, Pastor Francis? With all due respect, I beg to differ from some of the things that you said. With regard to
just now, Sister
with
Christine,
regard
just
to
now.
being too late.
Hold your point a while. Hold your point a while. Let me bring in Pastor Chandler because you're having different varying views. And so let me bring in Pastor Chandler first on the subject. Just hold your point a while.
Okay, so thank you again, Pastor Henry, and greetings to everyone again. And I, endorse in particularly Sister Kadeen and her response in terms of that challenge. And I think that was applicable even to the first question, Pastor Henry, that you posed concerning that 22-year-old. But concerning the question of the poverty and what happens after that, in terms of the question, my understanding of Christine's question was that apparently the parent, the father, whatever, would have come upon the young man indulging in this act, and then I definitely, of course, would agree, particularly what Pastor Francis was saying, that conversation should happen as early as possible, long before puberty. That should be happening. We need to be proactive concerning these things. And I have a 5-year-old grandson, and he's so he understand, but understand. He has been sensitized concerning his body, what is private, etc. And so that conversation needs to start early. But the fact is now we have a situation in the home that needs to be addressed. The first thing I would say, though, is that if a parent come across and somebody will find out that it is happening, do not respond with shock and shame and the world is ready to collapse. That's the first thing. So again, apparently the conversation may not have happened before, but what do we do now? The young man is involved, getting himself involved in this. And we recognize that there are pitfalls that can happen. But the reality is the sensations are there, and there is a result of him, bringing that pleasure to himself in this way. So I would say don't react in shock and make a big scene of it, but that should prompt the conversation. Also, in terms of that parent though have to be fully, in terms of their development and their understanding in their own sexuality, how to treat it. So it's not a matter of saying, well, don't do this, but talk from a personal point of view. As a young man, I had that experience. I may have done it, etc., and this is how I overcome it. And so that kind of understanding, so you're not standing off and saying, well, don't do this and make it sound. Many persons, as Pastor Francis said, many adult men and younger men are involved, but then we need to, so don't make the young man feel here alone that, this is something that, and of course, there are all kind of old wife tales that goes along with that, that are not factual. So therefore, we need to be very factual, straightforward, talk from a personal experience, our struggles, how we would have overcome, and how you need to overcome this, what is happening, and work in terms of, exercise, sports, whatever, in terms of energy that needs to be burnt, activities, etc. So it's not a open or shut case. It's not, it'll take a lot of patience, prayer, and understanding. But I think that with that kind of approach, you can get positive results. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just say that two of our panelists joined. I haven't had a chance to two of our panelists, other panelists this year. I haven't had a chance to recognize them as yet. Let me do that now. Miss Seneca King, who is in Boston, and Miss Cheryl King in Barbados. Ladies, welcome. And we're going to give you a minute to share your views in a while. So just be ready. Sister Christine, let me say that the points that we are sharing, I usually say when you come to programs like these, you should be like a fisherman. All right, so that a lot of things are going to put out there. You're going to catch a lot of things. Those fish that you don't want, you throw them back in the sea and you hold on to those that you want. So we are not about agreeing and disagreeing and back and forth and what have you. That's not the idea of the program. So if you have another question, we'll take it. But let me put in my piece first. All right. Now, my approach in a situation like this is simple. I take the Albert Ellis approach to counseling, and sometimes you have to shock people into behavior, into what they're supposed to do. I think our attitude over in dealing with people, we take this right and wrong approach instead of allowing people to make decisions based on their conscience and based on the conviction that they have at any given point in time. That is important because my conviction at this point in time in my life would be very much different to other people. I have gone to churches and I have said to churches that if I, and Pastor Griffith, you would have heard me say this on many occasions, if I lend to you, I am not going to ask you back, because that is what the Bible, that's my conviction from the scriptures, right? So as Christians, we would be different. And I don't expect that when I tell somebody that they are going to live that right there and then. They have to develop that conviction. Now, according to Ellis, when a child falls, and a child that is learning to walk, when that child falls, your reaction can help the child, or you can damage the child. And most of us do the right thing, because when the child falls, we don't cry. We just say to him, get up. We encourage him. We laugh about it so that the child would realize that it's a part of life. So when you come to an issue like a child's sexuality, we should be advanced, and we should be way in front of training the child even before the child gets to that stage. And I think that our approach as Christians and Christian leaders have been wrong for many years, in that we have been pounding, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do the other. And sometimes I feel we do it because we want to take the place of the man who sits in the judgment seat, whether consciously or not. But you look at the teachings of the New Testament, especially Paul's, and you would see that the whole thing is not about what you shouldn't do and what you ought not to do, but it's about who you recognize yourself to be. And so, whereas we are on the whole passage of sexuality, you look at the first, that passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, where Paul is talking to the believers, and he's talking to a church at Corinth, where to Corinthianize means literally, in our English language, it means to live a life of debauchery. Because at Corinth, sex was the order of the day. It was how the city survived. It was the industry of the city. It was sex. And Paul is talking to the Christians, and he doesn't tell them you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. But he says to them, listen, fornication is wrong. This isn't right. And you don't become because I am saying it isn't wrong or because it is right, but because of who you are. That's why you are not getting involved. Your bodies are the temple of the Holy Ghost. And so we need to get our children, and we need to get our people to understand who they are, the value that they have, the conditions that they have. Just today, I was sharing with a young man. I was saying to him, when I joined the embassy, I was placed in a position of trust. One of the things that was said to me very early, I was told that there are 3 things that can make you, that can cause you to be, can be a downfall to you. And we are going to be watching you in those areas: women, money, and drugs. Now, it all depended on who I was. It all depended on who I was. On one occasion, I was in a gas station, pulled into the gas station with a friend to get some gas, and a gentleman opened the car door, throw an envelope with money on the seat, and he wants me to help him to get a visa. I wouldn't doubt that my bosses had set up that to see exactly where I was as far as money was concerned. But then it is who you are. It is who you are. And so we need to teach our children to develop that confidence in themselves, not just to go to church and sing, I know who I am. And when you get out there on your own, you're not sure where you are at and you're not sure whose you are. And so I think that's the approach I would suggest to parents, to start teaching their children what Christianity is all about and who they are in the eyes of God. And the more we reinforce that, I think that our children would get to see themselves. And so some of these temptations would not be as so affecting them. And I think that when they fall, we should not go into the shock behavior, as it were, where we are becoming so panicked and what have you. We should be able to walk with them and help them to walk. Think about them as a little child learning to walk the path of sexuality. We should think about walking with them so as to help them to a place where they become stronger.
Well said, Pastor Henry. Well,
Pastor Henry, I was just saying that that I don't think that it is ever too late to speak to your child about the topic. And sometimes we as parents, we are not even expecting that it would come to that, because you know as a parent that you've been doing what is right all along, but then sometimes your child goes out there and they get introduced to various things by their peers, and so to speak. And I just wanted to say also that there are certain topics during certain stages of a child's life, you talk to them about certain things. I don't expect that as a pregnant mother, you would be talking to a child in the womb about masturbation. I mean, you know, well, at least that is how I see it. I just think, okay,
No,
well,
no, I don't think that was the point that Pastor,
I think she had it
Pastor
wrong,
Francis was
Pastor.
making. I think
No,
he was trying to say that you have to be
well, I
positive.
apologize for
Yeah, that's not the point he
misunderstanding
was
what
making.
was said.
No.
that is all part of it. That is all part of the discussion. We are big people who
Yes.
our backs are take, our skin are take. So that doesn't hinder us. We learn from each other, and I think that is what the program is all about. So it doesn't
That's right.
mean that we will
Yes.
leave here being annoyed with one another. But I just want to build on it, and I want you all to please excuse my pinch of humor and things like that. But I think being associated with Pastor Henry for a long time, some of his teachings and his belief have been rubbing off on me. I hope not too much. But I agree with you, Pastor Henry, because in these days I've been doing some things and I trying to reshuffle, reflect, and to let the light show back the reflection of what I've been doing. And one of the things I have made up my mind not to do, by the grace of God, is not just to get people to stop doing a particular thing, but to bring them to the point of transformation. Even after they have stopped doing it, they are not held in bondage. May I hasten to tell us, we could stop doing a lot of things and still be held in bondage of what we have stopped doing. And that is not what we want. We want transformation. Some people have left drugs, but they have become addicted to sex. Some people have left drugs, they have become addicted to food. So it's just a substitute that they are using. What we want, and this is where, as Brother Griffith would say, no, it's not Brother Griffith. The sister I sat on the first program, I think she lives in Boston. This is where she said, we must not rule out the Holy Ghost. We must not rule out God. We must not rule out the Spirit of God in helping to transform those lives, because we need the power of God. Some of the things we just cannot give it up by ourselves. So we need the power of God to help us. I listened to a preacher and he was saying, for us to be delivered from the evil, we need a greater power than the evil.
That's right.
We need a greater power than the evil. And that is where we have to guide them to the power of the Holy Ghost. And that is going to get them not just to stop, but to be delivered from that habit that seems to have them in bondage. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Pastor Francis. The King's sisters are with us.
Yes.
So I don't know if they would like to just jump in and say something, but the opportunity is yours, Seneca and Cheryl King. Okay, seemingly they're not. So.
Okay, brother. Anthony, good evening, everyone.
Yes, good evening.
I jumped into the, I joined late, so I'm not quite sure what the topic of discussion is about. I am guessing from what I heard that it is about sexual, I don't know, sexual sins or sexual conduct or something.
Yeah, the question was asked about masturbation. How do you teach your children about masturbation?
Oh,
that was the question. That was the question that came from the audience.
Okay. I suppose, like, for anything else, and I don't know any biblical groundings for teaching masturbation, but just off the cap of my head, I would say, just like you teach your children anything about life, and you start at, as early as possible, and especially close to the age where these things become part of their behavior. I would imagine that you would have, frank discussions about it. I know from a biological perspective, I can speak to that, masturbation is not a surprising thing. It's not necessarily an unhealthy thing either. It's a natural phenomenon. And, but like anything else, all the natural things, if they're not within their right context and in temperance, anything can become a sin and an addiction. And I do agree with yourself and Pastor Francis, the way that you guys explained about, it is teaching people to value who they are. And with the power of the Holy Spirit, if it becomes a sin, it is something that can be overcome. That's my take on it.
Thank you so very much. So we're waiting for another question from the audience. So if Miss Cheryl King, I don't know who that exactly is, was one of our panelists. She's about 100, not even 100 yards away from me, 100 feet away from me, but I'm not sure she's ready to open her mic, to unmute her mic and say something. But so we're waiting on the audience. If you have another question, feel free. It's our final night, so all the subjects that we have talked about, actually, Sister Christine, this subject on sexuality, we did that about 3 weeks ago. I think you were on that panel, Pastor Francis. I think Sister Kadeen was on that subject, right? You were here for that one. But we did one on the teenager or the child, the adolescent and sexuality just a few weeks ago, yeah. A few months ago. Okay. So it doesn't have to be there on the sex alone. It could be any area that relates to family life. Another question, anybody else? Pastor? So yes, Pastor Griffith, you're muted. We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you, Pastor Griffith. We're still not hearing you. As a matter of fact, I'm not seeing you having a microphone at all. So your microphone isn't plugged in. You're not connected with a microphone. So yeah, fix up and come. So what? It's Christmas. It is Christmas, and one of the areas that a lot of families are going to find themselves in trouble at the end of this season is money. Am I right? They're going to find themselves, not Pastor Chandler and myself for sure. We old. But a lot of young families are going to find themselves come January with a lot of financial issues because of Christmas. What do you tell these young people about money management, especially at this time of Christmas? Any of the panelists? Pastor Chandler, like they're waiting on you to start, so go right ahead.
Well, I'm not sure why, but basically, I will teach in terms of the value of budgeting. Budgeting is making choices. Christmas, I know people have these traditions that they want to do, but when we make budget, we make decisions in terms of how we can appropriate the resources we have. I urge people try not to get into debt. The debt trap is something that is so easy to get into. They tell you nothing down, just come and take it, etc. But nothing down means January you have to start, paying your installments, and that's a different scenario altogether. So, and of course, simple things, and try not to compete, with the neighbors or whoever, family members, impressing folks. People have been laughing, making joke about these things. I saw something recently concerning one of the parang that we have in Trinidad. Eat something before you go. But he said, we had to change that. He said, eat something before you come. so where we could have been, very generous, time pass. And it's good because part of our culture. Like in Trinidad, we like to entertain folks, and there's something positive about that. But don't, put in a context, set a budget, keep it a budget, get a discipline, etc. You don't have to wait till Christmas to get new this and new this and new that. You go spread over time when it's a need that you need to do, you need to replace. Although some people say that somehow these appliances kind of go bad just around this time. This breakdown, that breakdown, whatever. I don't know or shooting that, but some people seem to feel that happens. But budget, stick to your budget. Don't try to impress. Careful with taking loans around this time. Everybody's giving a loan, credit union, the banks. Everybody wants to come and do that. But of course, that's the debt trap. Of course, what we have now, that card, the credit card, it could really cause us to get into some real serious credit card. Interest is astronomical. Don't get caught in that. Thank you.
Pastor Griffith, try removing the headset and see if you're going to get it.
I think
try disconnecting the headset. Yeah. It's tech. I was doing an online training course in Charleston last week, and this was with the US government, and they're supposed to have out front material. And I almost went crazy because of technology. Because it's so many, three screens in front of you, and somehow you only have two eyes. And you have to manage all three of them at the same time. And everything so when I press a button, something goes wrong on the other one, and then it was crazy. So I understand, Pastor Griffith, I understand.
Still not getting him.
Still not getting you. No, work without the earphone and the headset and see what would happen. Work with the usual old way. Are we still not hearing you? All right, so let me tell you about somebody. Pastor Chandler mentioned the credit card. Get the credit card. I think I see Sister King's hand went up. I'm going to come to you, Sister Kennedy. Let me just tell these guys about the credit card. Get the credit card. It is a way of getting a month's loan in advance that you don't have to pay for, that you don't have to pay interest for. So it's a free loan for 1 month. This is how it works, right? every credit card has a billing date.
Mhm.
Mine, I have 4, you know. Mine on both of them is either the 21st or the 23rd of the month. So I buy everything on the credit card. Not that I can't go to my savings account and withdraw and buy. I buy it on the credit card because it's credit. When they send me the bill around the 23rd or the 24th of the month, I have until the 9th or the 11th of the month to pay the full bill. Now, the nice thing with me is that my credit card, when I buy, they give me back. They used to give us points. Now they give us cash. So the more I buy on the credit card, is the more cash I get. And I have noticed that when it adds up for the year, I pay 625 TT on that particular card. And by the end of the year, when my credits are total up, it comes close to $600. So in truth and in fact, that pays what they give me. What I get back what I pay for getting the card. Once I pay my bill by the 9th of the month, one card is the 11th of the month, I am charged no interest whatever. So the money that I had to spend, it was in my savings account a month ago. You understand what I'm saying? I used the card for the entire month, and having used the card, when the bill comes, the first thing I do before the month gets to the 9th of the month, I make sure that I pay the bill. So normally, sometimes I have something to buy on the 18th of the month. I wait until the 21st because I don't have to pay that by the 9th. So when I buy it on the 18th, when I buy it on the 21st of the month or the 22nd of the month, I have a whole 6 weeks to pay for that item. That's the benefits of the credit card. If you are going to pay just the minimal amount, you are going to suffer for the rest of your life. All right. So if you have a credit card bill, make sure you are paying off the bill every single month. Don't not even a cent. As a matter of fact, one time I mistook the bill and I paid 10 cents less on the credit card, and they still charged me the interest on the whole amount that I was owing. So make sure you pay off the whole thing. Okay. Yes, Sister King, your hand was up for a long while. Sorry about that. Please go right ahead.
No problem, but this is one of my favorite topics, the budgeting thing and being a good steward, a good financial steward. And I do agree with Pastor Chandler. You have to stick to your budget. You've made a budget, you've been living by it for 11 months of the year. Don't let the 12th month, force you into doing anything unusual. Christmas is just one day, live as usual. And for what you said, Anthony, I agree that, credit cards, if managed properly, can be good. But the truth of the matter is, most people are not disciplined enough to use credit cards well. And that is why the financial experts suggest that people not use credit cards or not have too many of them. I myself have always only kept 1 or 2 at most. And like you, I like to pay them off by the end of the month or the due date. I just try to pay them off.
Lord.
The other thing that I
Hello?
would say to folk is that become creative in your giving. You don't always have to give, cash gifts or monetary gifts or expensive gifts. But what about giving gifts of service? I said to my sister earlier this week, I don't desire anything material for Christmas. What I would like for her to do, or for my family to do, is to do something for me that I have wanted done for a while. And, that would involve giving of their time and energy. It doesn't cost them a penny. So you could also become creative and try to give gifts of service where you do something for somebody that you don't have to spend money to do. It's just giving your time and energy, perhaps. And as Pastor Chandler said, stick to your budget as much as possible. And one of the best gifts I find that you could give yourself is that of, I try to pay off all my debts, the small debts. Of course, you won't be able to pay off like a mortgage or a car note or something ahead of time unless you've budgeted for that. But whatever debts, outstanding debts I have, or whatever, I try to pay them off. I like to start the year clean. That's what I say. So that's one of the best gifts you could ever give yourself. So that's my little take on it at Christmas time.
Okay. All right. Anyone in the audience has a question for us?
Pastor Henry, if I may contribute to the topic
Sure.
of finances on Christmas. So I recently concluded a course in Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey. So it would be remiss of me to sit here
Amen.
and not share any of my learnings from the course, right?
Seneca's guy.
So the first thing that stood out, that stuck with me from that Financial Peace University course, the idea of plastic, credit cards, debit cards, plastic. What Dave Ramsey shared, which is so true. There is a psychological effect that happens when we spend cash that is absent when you use a card. Give it some thoughts. So when we have to pay something and we count in the dollars, it does something to us psychologically. You feel it. As opposed to using a card, you don't feel it. So when the beggar comes up to your glass and knocks on the glass and he wants $1 and you have to pull out cash and give him, there's a feeling that happens. But when you in courts or dwellings and you pull out that credit card and you just stick it in there mindlessly, knowing, yes, I have the credits, there's no psychological effect. And this is what the card was created for, to get us numb to just spending. And the only time we do feel it with the card is when you're not sure if you have the balance. You're a little worried, you're wondering if it will reject. And so the encouragement in Financial Peace is to use cash, because technically, this is me just quoting what I learned. Every time you use a credit card, you're borrowing money from somebody to buy something. And why borrow the money if you already have it? So even as good as a manager as you are, you have that amount in your savings. You just want to use the credit so that you won't have to use yours. You're still going to take your money that you earned and pay it back. Why not buy it with your money that you earn and not owe anybody a cent and not have to look over your shoulder and be at peace? So this is one of the takeaways that I got from that training. And a second thing that they said, and for people who will be getting bonus for Christmas, the first thing he encouraged us to do is to start an emergency fund. Minimum put aside $1,000 and start adding to it. Your emergency fund should be $1,000 US, which is 6,000 TT. That would be I guess 3,000 Bajan. I'm not too sure the exchange rates, right? But start an emergency fund and only use that money for things that wasn't planned. The second thing is create a zero-based budget. What is a zero-based budget? If I'm working for $5,500 a month, every one of those dollars is accounted for. 500 is rent, 350. There should be no dollar out of that 5,500 that is not pre-planned to be spent somewhere, and it's not all spending. 700 savings, $550 is tithes, $1,000 is the rent. Every single dollar before that salary comes is already accounted for, and you do only what you have planned to do with it. So anything outside of what is planned for that zero-based budget will come out of your emergency fund.
So here
that's
is
just
my
share.
here is my take to you on scriptural take on financial management. Always learn to use people's money. Here's the scripture. The kingdom will like be a man going a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2, to another 3. And you know the story. When I take 5 bags of gold from the bank, which is somebody else's wealth, my intent is to make 5 more. And if you can do that, you would have invested. And let me tell you something. A lot of people don't get ahead with money because they don't have a plan. The Lord can't entrust to them anything because they don't have a plan. And when you don't have a plan, when you get the money, you bury it. Read Matthew 25 again and you will see what it says. The man who had 5 bags of gold, in today's money, it's about $6 million. And he got it, and straightway he went and put it to use. He had a plan. He knew what he was going to do with it. There are a lot of Christians praying to win the lottery, and they're going to be bankrupt the next day. Because they don't have any plans. All right. So as you said, it's not baseline budgeting is basically different, but you need to have a plan what you are going to do with wealth if you come into wealth. You know, you're praying about it. I remember I was praying about getting a house of my own. And while I am there praying, the phone rang and my father called me and said, listen, I had a piece of land here in St. Vincent for you. I sold it and I want to send the money for you. Tell me how the best way I can send it for you. I mean, that money wasn't going to anything else but to a house, because that's what I was praying for. So have a plan with what you're going to do with what you don't have. Because we usually think about money that God will supply our needs and not our, God will supply our needs and not our wants. That is a lie. All right? God says he is able to do more, exceeding abundantly more than we can ask or think. The only problem is that when God starts to do exceeding abundantly more than we can ask or think, we have no plan as to how we are going to make use of what he has given to us. So, yes, Pastor Francis, sure.
I'm glad you talk about a plan, because I think that is where we are lacking. And it is when we say we talk about money now, but it is general, plan in general. So I try to plan as though I live, let me reconstruct the question. I live as though Jesus will never come in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. I plan as though he will never come in my lifetime, but I live as though he's going to come now. That means by my godly walk. Like even so, I tell myself, so what if I plan and the plan, I'm gone. And that is where I spoke to the church on Sunday, and my sister in Grenada, we were talking. We have to admit, pastors, that we were schooled wrong, and they taught us the best they knew. And there are a lot of things we could have done, and today would have been reaping the benefit of had we not told that Jesus was coming now. So there is no plan for anything. I talk about it. It was a big sin to have insurance. But at my age, I should be drawing down from insurance and things like that. So we did not plan for those things. And now some of us, we live we're in regrets and we have nothing to fall back on, God. So that's one. So we must plan. As it relates to money, any money that is given to me that I did not expect, whether it is bonus, somebody called me and they say, go to Western Union. I do three things with that money. One, it doesn't matter how small it is, I save some, I give some, and I spend some on myself, on somebody. And when I say myself, I'm talking about myself and my wife. So I go to Western Union, MoneyGram, so I get the money. There is something nice. I know my wife is a lover of flowers. Wherever I change money, they sell nice orchids and different things there. I take one home for her. That is a given. That is a spending on ourselves, the given. Give somebody who is less fortunate. It may not be solid cash. I think somebody talked about that. I think it's the king, but I give something, but it doesn't matter how small it is. I save something. I save something. As it relates to credit card, I have one credit card. I'm not a credit card fan, so I try to use, and I like what Pastor Henry says about using the credit card, but I try to use most solid cash because of when I put in my card in the ATM and I withdraw, immediately I know my balance. So I restructure now according to how my balance reads. I know how much I should spend and how much I should. So I prefer that way for that reason. I know what my balance is when I withdraw. And oh God, there was a third thing I wanted to say, but it slipped me. So I'll just forward that. It was, nevertheless, I forgot what I wanted to say. So that's how I try to think. I think like Sister King, I could say that I'm a good spender of money. And to be honest, I think I said that in a previous program. Poor little Grenadian boy, very poor, but from early o'clock, and I am not the oldest in my family. I come two before the last, so I'm in the middle there. But yet, the trust of the financial responsibilities was placed on my shoulder. And I would fret as this little guy has to go and conduct business. I remember my mother's husband fell down and died from a massive heart attack. Myself and my sister, I was the one to go make all the funeral arrangements. With what a piece of wood need to be changed on the house, I was the one giving that cash to go down to the lumber yard and get it in. So I learned management in the practical, money management in the practical way. And I never could have understand it in my foolish heart. And I would quarrel, why me? But then, not too long ago, maybe 5-6 years, the Lord told me, and Pastor Henry will know about that, and Pastor Chandler, when we had all the misunderstanding when we was constructing our church, the Lord told me that all that was happening as it relates to monies being entrusted in you was my doing for the work that I have called you to do. I sit here not meaning to be proud, but there are people who have entrusted the estate in my hand. Guy called me today and he said, remember what we spoke about? I didn't remember I had an account in Trinidad. I only came down, I'm talking about today, only came down and I realized I have X amount. I want to send all the monies I want to put on that account through you. And that is what people must be able to, not only our money, but our personal money, but people must be able to trust us with their money. And if we cannot trust ourselves with our own money, no one will trust us with the monies they have passed, allowed to come through our hand. And if God operates on that principle, you give us small things and we can handle it, He won't give us bigger things. And money included in that matter. Thank you.
Pastor Griffith, just you make it back.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Now, Kadim made a point about the psychology of using a credit card. And I quite could understand the point she's making there, because it is so easy to push in the credit card. All right. But I want to go back, Pastor Henry, because you in my bear patch. I am an economist and I ain't too great. But right now, I know that my credit card has on over $800 worth in points. And I know that my credit card ends on the payment date. Statement date is 20th of the month. And I also know that I have to, for every month, I need to pay X amount. So I'm careful about how I make my payments so that at the end, I can still get it right. But after the 20th of the month, let's say the 21st, I know the statement law on the 21st, I'm going to try to clear off my credit card clean. And in fact, I actually use my credit card money until I get my money by the end of the month. That is, I have advanced use of my money.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, when the year ends, right now I told you that I have over $800 value in points on my card. So my credit card is costing me absolutely nothing. So with that, people who can, and if you were in business based on your credit card limits, it is also possible that you, just give a minute, my battery seems to be wanting to help on me.
You only have 2 more minutes for the program, Pastor.
Yeah, all right, I can pause it, but all I'm just going to say is that we need to learn to manage the credit card, but it can be very useful. Even in business, it can be useful at advance money. Don't let Christmas make you spend money and then suffer next year. I pause.
Thank you. All right, so we are wrapping up. I'm gonna just make one last point about the spending for Christmas. Listen to me, money since the Old Testament time, money only has 3 areas. And I think Pastor Francis touched it a while ago. There are 3 basic areas where you spend your money. That was the recommendation that Joseph gave to the Egyptians. And he says, listen, I've brought to you your land today for Pharaoh. Just imagine an Israeli went into Egypt, bought the Egyptians' land in the name of the king. So he bought all the lands for him because he was wise. He was an economist. And so he says, I'm giving you food. Here is seed for you so you can plant the ground. But when the crops come in, give a 5th to Pharaoh. That's your taxes. And you see where that falls for us? Give a 5th to Pharaoh. Those are your taxes. The other 4/5, you may have a seed for the fields and as food for yourselves. So seed you're planting back, that's your investment. And out of that 4/5, right, you're supposed to give, and I don't tell people to give tithes, because I believe that the more you give is the greater that God would bless you. 1 Corinthians. And so I do not measure, and mind you, if your church teaches it, stick with what your church says. But personally, I do not measure myself by giving a tithe. I think that is the Old Testament, minimizing what God really wants you to do. And he says the rest of it you use for food. And one last thing I want to say about finances. One of the things that everything that God has given to me, and I had to learn that lesson the hard way, very hard way, because the most precious thing that he had given to me at one time, he took it back. And when I was fussing and what have you and so on, he said, this was just a loan to you, it's mine. And I have the right to do what I want with. And so everything that God has given to me doesn't really belong to me. It's just but a loan that he has given to me. So I use it as though it belongs to him. Okay, so I am not out here to make money, but to invest the money so that when I stand before the kingdom of God, and I'm not going there like the rich man who asked that his gold be buried in the coffin and decide that he's going to heaven with the gold in the suitcase. When he gets there, Peter says to him, listen, man, I know where you're going with that. That's what we usually use to pave the streets up here, to repair the roads. So that doesn't mean anything in heaven when we get there. It's the life that we live. It's the people that we influence. It's that kind of investment. But money, it takes money to do that. And so we use the money wisely to sow into the lives of others. Panelists, thank you very much. Your final thoughts before we go on the questions that came forward and on the program this evening. It's going to be a final thought for 2022. We have a nice series of program lineup already for the first quarter, and we'll let you know more about those as the Christmas season rolls on. So everybody, all the panelists who are with us this evening, your final thoughts, please.
Let me start first because I think I came last. It is my desire to see us as Christians, as the body of Christ, as family members, to come up to the standard and the place that God will want us to be, that those on the outside who are looking on will see a true reflection of what a true child of God should be and what the church of God was meant to be. That through our lifestyle, the way we behave, act, and not on a Sunday morning, a Sabbath day, or whatever day, they will want to be part of us because they see the light and the love of God shining through us. I live for that, and I will die for that. That at the end of it, we will bring glory and praise to the name of Jesus Christ. To those of you who believe in Jesus, in Christmas and celebrate Christmas, whatever you call it, season greetings, happy Christmas, and all the best for the new year 2023. God bless us all.
Amen.
And I would say that your family must be given high priority in your life. Your work will someday fire you or retire you. And sometimes those who you work with will probably forget you ever existed. And if you're able to work and don't find time for your family, you lose everything. Find time for your family is a priority to anything else. The same as you dress to go to work, go home expecting to find time with your family. And be careful about TV and all the things. Find time to talk and have fun with your family. Merry Christmas and all the best.
Amen.
I just want to reiterate what was already said by Pastor Francis and Pastor Griffith. I mean, this is real talk family life, and family is the cornerstone of society. It was the first relationship before man became. God is a triune. He exists in the form of a family, basically. And so I just want to reiterate. You're hearing me? Said by Pastor Francis and Pastor Griffith, I mean, this is real talk family life, and family is the cornerstone of society. It was the first relationship before man became. God is a triune. He exists in the form of a family, basically. And so I just want to reiterate. You're hearing me?
Yes. I think we have lost you, Sister Kiddy.
Yes, something went wrong there. We got a echo.
So Pastor Chandler, just go right ahead.
Well, again, thank you, Pastor Henry, for the opportunity. I was late. I joined the team late in terms of the year. Of course, I think I came on maybe October, maybe November. I can't remember when, but way down in towards the end of the year. And I thank God for the opportunity to share with this knowledgeable group of panelists to just add my comments, etc. But of course, the whole direction of this discussion group, this time of interaction, building shatterproof families. That's the aim of building, helping your family, particularly Christian families, that they will survive. The family, they're under threat in so many different ways, financial ways, in terms of relationships, children, parents, between spouses, siblings. There's and as we shared earlier, with all the different information, I think Sister Kadeen really captured and talked about the options that we have, as against what some probably the older ones of us would have experienced when we had less options, and life was much simpler then than it is now. I always tell older folks that we be careful how we speak about young people and criticize them, because they are living in a different reality. They, we compared to us, they have it really, really difficult. Even though, even as I age now, and, I thank God for my formative years, but somehow being young in these times, boy, it's a different ball game. And I feel it for young people. And we as leaders and pastors and elders should really work with our young people to, get to understand who they are as individuals and how they can survive and thrive even in these difficult times. And so that communication, that conversation must continue, must intensify. And I think, as Pastor Griffith said, do things together, fun things, not just about church, thank God for church, thank God for fellowship, but do things together, have fun together, so that truly, those are memories, particularly for young ones, that will never, never go away. My dad, my mom did this with me, etc. Thanks again for the opportunity. All the best and all the bless for this time of the year. It's a great time to demonstrate who Jesus is and explain to folks. Some more people just take this time to say all kind of negative thing about Christianity and about even our Lord Jesus Christ. This is a time to articulate and to demonstrate our life and through ministry who he is and why he came. And all the best to 23. We are in difficult times, all over the world. People talk about knowing that we live as if he's going to come at any time. But the fact is, without being calling dates and names, we seem to be in the last of the last days, and we need to, inform our behavior going forward. Bless you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sister King? Okay, yes.
So Anthony, Brother Anthony, you wanted me to say something?
Yes, just your final word to your listeners.
Well, I certainly enjoyed participating in these programs. I learned a lot, and I hope I was able to share something worthwhile to all of you. I want to wish you God's richest blessings for 2023. I can't believe I'm saying 2023 already. Yes, but whatever you do over the Christmas holidays, however you celebrate the fact that Christ has come to this world to die for us, I pray that you would be safe, and I pray that you would put him at the center of all your activities. Let him be your guide, because he is promised in Proverbs 3 that he's able to guide us on a daily basis. Put our trust in him and let him lead, and have a safe and happy Christmas, and God's richest blessings as we venture into 2023. The journey promises to be rough, but while we don't know what the future holds, we know who holds the future. And if we walk with him, we shall be safe. God bless all.
Thank you. Sister Kadeen, will we hear from you? You're muted. You're still muted.
I know those things.
Sorry. I switched devices, struggling a little. I'm sorry about my bad internet. Apparently, internet only works here when it's not raining, and it's raining. Yes, what I was saying is that, you know, I really love these programs and this program in particular because we focus on the family, and family is, they say, the cornerstone of society. It is the fabric of society. And if we go all the way back in Genesis, we know that really that is what was attacked from the beginning in the Bible, that disconnect. You know, Satan, that old serpent, he tried to disconnect Adam and Eve from the Father, from the source. And so what we do here, the times that I spent here, the programs, the discussions, all geared towards not forgetting building shatterproof families. And, you know, I just want to encourage everyone. We do what we learn. Sometimes we say it a few times in panels. Most of it sometimes is not necessarily what is taught, but what is caught. And learning, again, is a lifelong process. So we always have the opportunity to make adjustments. We always have the opportunity to change things, you know, especially for the parents in terms of parenting. There's no manual really, and each child is different. So people teach us how to manage them, and we have to be able to make the adjustments to suit. My encouragement is to always ask why. We spoke about being judgmental, wanting to put down the law a lot of times and not knowing how to balance grace, and focusing on behaviors and the do's and the don'ts instead of, you know, the heart behind it, and helping people and children in particular to understand who they are. So always ask why. Let that be the guiding question for conversations, especially when challenges come up. And I just want to say that, let Jesus be the center of our celebrations, because we are celebrating Advent. God came into the world in the form of a human being for us to be a family again. So enjoy your Christmas with your family. And I hope to be back again with everyone in 2023, God willing.
Yes, and thank you very much, every one of you who tuned in this evening. We are very much grateful. I'm seeing someone whom I knew as a very young woman still going to school from Grenada, Sister Josephine Mirai Paul. Nice seeing you. The Lord bless you richly. Say hi to your mom for me, please. And all the best. Yes, say something. Go ahead.
God's blessing on everyone. This is a really good topic for discussion. God has just blessed me with an inheritance, and it's sitting in the bank, and I'm seeking to the Lord as to what I should do. And so this came just in time, at a good time, actually. So, and Merry Christmas to everybody. Yes, my mom, she's going to be 97 in January. So she's still hanging on in there. Good. I thank God for the ministry that you led in Grenada, and how you have blessed our lives. Not just me, but my whole family got saved. My grandfather got saved. Even though he didn't want me to attend church, the Pentecostal church at that time. But I thank God that he got saved also during the time of your ministry. All of my family got saved, 8 siblings. So to God be the glory. And amen. So keep up the good work. I enjoyed this discussions, and I do tune in from time to time. I may not show my face, but I'm there supporting it. God bless.
Thank you, Sister Josephine, and the Lord bless you. Panelists, thank you very much for being with us, Pastor Francis, Pastor Chandler, Sister King, Sister Kadeen, everybody. Pastor Griffith, thank you very, very much for being with us, and we are saying good night and have a blessed, blessed Christmas. Dr. Sutherland was off this evening because she had an emergency. And so Dr. Neff, she had a little issue she was taking care of also, so she was not able to be on. But we are happy to have had them. They weren't able to be with us on our last program. I know that they're not too pleased with that with themselves, but God knows best. We enjoyed ourselves and have a wonderful evening and a blessed, blessed, blessed Christmas. Thank you all. Have a good
God
night.
bless.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.